Hi everybody, here is a video of this month's March full moon reading. Now in this case, talking about it over with Laura, we were sort of coming up with ideas, and this month, I was telling her about one time on top of a backpacker's lodge quite a few years ago now. And I got this image of backpacker's lodge in Sydney, and with a very nice view and a pool of all things. But anyway, I got this image, and I was standing on top of this building overlooking the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and I was watching this almost waterfall of glistening, scintillating, golden, white light pouring down from the sky, and me just standing in awe in front of that. And I thought, and initially I wondered what it was, and then I realized what it was. I go, oh my God, is this God? And this image has always kind of stayed with me. I've received countless thousands of images in my lifetime, but this was one that left a big impression, and for good reason. Now, so the topic for this month is, to see God. Ask the question. Like, it's kind of a ludicrous question to say that there's just one depiction of God, but why not ask the source itself? So that's what I did, at least for the visions, and Laura also has this idea of having a vision of God, of the divine, the source energy, the universal consciousness, enter your own euphemism, while she produced a beautiful song, so which I haven't heard yet, and she might not have produced at this point. However, so here's the video. Let's begin. Alright, so first image, just here, is he bowed with the tunnel of spirit forming. So that's just myself, and I'm kind of pensive as I go into a light trance to start channeling. And then in image number 2, a more solid light started forming outside. So it kind of reminded me of, it wasn't like a normal kind of elliptical shaped light that I see, but it's kind of like the O from an oracle. Now that I look at that at my notes, it was different. It was more like the the burning bush from the Bible, that kind of vibe. Interesting comparison. I don't know where that came from, but there was trees in the foreground, but there wasn't a flame light. And then the next image, I saw a female figure with 4 beings coming out from her torso, and these 4 beings, they looked a lot like gods, or not gods, guides, I should say. And she was wearing a white robe, and I thought, oh. And in the background there was this sort of rainbow energetic energy sort of behind her, and And I thought, oh, who's this, deity or guide that's entering this reading to help me perhaps to share a representation of the divine. And next image. I hadn't clued on at that point. These four souls allowed a heart tube. So these four guides, or supportive, facilitating spirits, came from her torso, and then a sort of a fifth tube connected to something external, or some being external. And then I was thrown into a photographic image of well, it looked like Greece, and so I wrote Grecian. Grecian robed women and virgins. And I thought, virgins? Like, I put a question mark, like, what relevance is this? Whether they are virgins or not. But that was what the knowing came from me. That impression that, yeah. And one looking at me. So there was a central figure, and she was the same person that was rising, but except not radiant with light or anything. She was very much human, incarnated. One looking at me, and then I thought, oh, this is the Oracle of Delphi, and I thought, wow. And I googled. I wrote a lot of these annotations after I'd done the reading, but I thought, this is the Oracle of Delphi, and this is her. And perhaps some of the other channels or oracles that were there to connect with Apollo and prophesize the happenings that were of interest and concern to those in power, I would imagine. Anyway, and so yeah, that was when I clued on that this was the Oracle of Delphi. But I wrote afterwards the Pythia, or Pythia. She was the main, I should say oracle, but channel, to be possessed by, the gods, and in particular Apollo. And then in the next image, I saw her soul with like this, I wrote down a Metatron cube like cross gravitating down the body vessel. So it looked like sacred geometry, and it was scanning her energy body, and preparing this vessel for channeling. And then in the next image, and the room darkened, and so it was kind of like a continuation of this one up here. The room darkened, and dark-toned helping spirits, officials that had passed on to the afterlife, entered her consciousness. So she was channeling, but it looked like she was more channeling her ancestors in this particular image, not the god Apollo. And then in the next image, it kind of cut to another ancient civilization, Egypt. And I wrote, a great golden hall opened up at the base of a pyramid. So, when she connected to there, this golden hall that was lined with tall golden figures, and into this entrance into a pyramid. Again, now pyramids in my work usually are of basically high knowledge, wisdom, but but the image in this particular one was more literal than that. So, you know, Egypt, Greece, and Rome, they all, I suppose, they kind of shared their gods at different stages. And so there was this, you know, cross pollination of spiritual thought that was very much interconnected. And, you know, and geographically, they were pretty close. Now, the next image was the Pythias standing in the middle of the same cross that had gravitated down her body, or her energy body. And now, crosses in my work are where the vertical of spirit and the horizontal of you know, the earth, or like the physical plane, meet. And so when she's standing in the middle of these two, she's you know, she's on that bridge between she has one foot on both sides of the veil. And, you know, occasionally crosses actually do mean some relevance to Christianity, but not always. And in this case it wasn't. So, number 10. So this is a very high key image, and this is when I actually started getting that sense of, oh wow, this is that same energy that I saw, you know, source energy, you know, what I said, oh my God, is this God, energy on top of the Backpackers Lodge, where, you know, all great mystics end up these days. I'm just joking, but it was up high, you know, kind of like a mountain, where you'd imagine, you know, people or mystics want to head. But anyway, so Heike, the known manifest universe, was an ocean of glowing, moving energy. And I, well, see, I wrote I, but I realized it was just me relating to her in a very personable way that, you know, and, you know, I'm just sort of touching base with my inner voice, and it's saying, no, it is her, but, and you were relating to her, and you're experiencing some of these very human emotions that she was when she was experiencing it for the first time as well. So, and she was above it, watching independent energies push forward against / underneath the surface, the membrane, the skin. So it almost looked like she was on a boat, and but the ocean was this ocean of God's source energy, and the skin that I'm sort of talking about there, this membrane, like, it was like a, yeah, I suppose it was like a skin. You know, you could call it the veil, but it was like she was on top of all that is manifest, and that it was just shown as all as, you know, this divine energy. And underneath were these independent energies like souls and deities, and just the going, toing and froings, the goings, uh, uh, kind of coming up and sort of pushing against the surface of between the unmanifest and the manifest. But at the end of the day, it was all divine energy. Now, in the next image, number 11, Lower World. Okay, so it was dark, and then I saw this figure with this, and you know, I presumed it was a woman, and it was, had a cloth around her head, and initially I thought it was a nun, but I don't think it was. I actually think it was just cloth to protect one from the sun, and excuse me, and and in the foreground, which was, you know, quite a, what I wrote, surreal juxtaposition, non sequitur. You know, and initially I wrote nun and a spoon of sugar in the lower world. As you do, this is quite, you know, it's very, yeah, strange, surreal juxtaposition of things. So, and you know, like, and I thought, oh, what's this substance? Surely it's not sugar. And oh, her face, she was missing a face. It was just like large grains of whatever this, or like speckles of whatever was on that spoon, and it was a white substance, and you know, and then I thought, oh, I wonder if this is like a an opium spoon, or some kind of yeah, opiate, like a psychedelic substance, and it was in a sort of a cave setting, so it was very much a lower world, and for whatever reason, this was an influence at the time for the Pythia, and it has some sort of relevance. Then in the next image, her head opens with a blue sparkling sphere of new earth energy. And I'm asking my voice, inner voice, right now, and this was her too. And again, I just like related, like, or I was feeling her emotions, which, you know, it's actually a bit mediumistic more than, you know, sort of my, you know, usual kind of channeling. And then being robed in the collective consciousness, blindsided, surprised, and then I wrote cultural religious overlay, unexpectedly, you know, her abilities and what was coming through became very popular very fast, and, you know, it took her by surprise. In the next image, number 14, this was also another peculiar image. There was these large, dark tentacles of that were reaching out for these, you know, pairs of souls that were rising. So it was like these, you know, pairs of souls rising to heaven from earth, and this strange primordial astral plane, you know, kind of like a monster, but reaching for them, and not too aggressively or anything, but it was just sort of, it kind of reminds me of like a sea anemone reaching out for fragments of food floating in the ocean. That kind of feeling. But also, I wrote Beetlejuice next to it, and also wrote the Kraken. Another Greek myth. So the reason I wrote Beetlejuice was because it was kind of quirky, like quirky. There's a, this is a pop culture reference. There's a scene where there's the sandworm, and it tries to gobble up anybody who goes out into the astral plane or something like that. But the astral plane was depicted as a desert, sort of no man's land type scenario, limbo. And it was just one of these unexplained astral entities that was revealed in this reading. Anyway, and then in the next image, a figure made of clouds, a cloud body opened up, and then its head became a rainbow energy. Now, this is the same rainbow energy that was behind the Pythia when, at the start here. And now, and in the torso of the body, in image number 15, it was opened up, and it had that same glistening source energy inside. Number 17, we're nearing the end. Atlas. So yeah, I wrote Atlas because I saw this figure holding, I suppose, a lens of the world. So there's the whole idea of the flat Earth, but it's more, kind of like a disc shape, but it was a lens, and so the lens. There was a large figure holding this lens of the Earth, and it was pouring down into me this time, finally. Not that it's all about me, anyway. Certainly hasn't been so far. So what did I actually write? The God who holds up the world, celestial spheres. Yeah, holding up the celestial spheres. The whole world, both pouring into and coming from a mind. So it was the construction of reality where my own mind was the source of its representation, where perception is both a receiver and broadcaster of the reality that incarnated Adam is experiencing. And then the next one was another angle of this larger God figure, in a human form, looking over their shoulder, and underneath was a clearing in a forest, and then I was talking to the Pythia, or wrote the Grecian lady Pythia in the forest clearing. And it was the same region of the world, Greece, as I saw in that solid light started forming outside. Number 19, third last, Africa, Niagara Falls. Africa too, pretty close to Greece and Egypt, and for that matter. so I wrote Africa, Niagara Falls, and there was a figure standing and connecting to the so this is a low angle looking up at this figure with this head of light, and the head of light is connecting to the inner parts of the arm rings of, for what have you, God, as it's being represented, and then and it was next to a cliff face, and I, sensed they were standing next to a river. And then in the next image, a long shot or a different angle of that, and this time the God figure leant down and reached into the water with the person with the head of light. Usually whenever I see a person with a head of light, I know they're a light worker. So, they're here to, basically because they care about the earth and her inhabitants. And when he reached down, I will say he, but at the same time, maybe androgynous. But it's not their gender that was interesting to me. It was their skin color that was interesting. It was dark brown. So this dark-skinned, anthropomorphic, human depiction of God reaching down into the water, and then this large water serpent zooming across up the gully. And then the final image was, I wrote Apollo, ? So he was, strong and levitating in the sky, slowly forward, with a group of, Egyptian mummies who were like mummified, but without the embalming, or like the wrapping, I should say. Floating behind him with their hands in the cross-like posture, and it did kind of look Roman, but I believe it was more Grecian. Like I might be getting my, say, contemporary and movie depictions of Rome and Greece mixed up, but there's just this strong sense of, gallant honor and man, but I also wrote an ascended master with the pharaohs. So again, there was this Greece, Egypt crossover and interrelationship. Now, did we actually, I suppose while I was getting the images, I said, just God, show me God, God, show me God. And, this large story unfolded. Have I, seen God by the end of this reading? Sort of. There's no definitive depiction of God.